The NBA regular season is just around the corner, and Celtics fans are already buzzing with anticipation. With only a few weeks separating us from tip-off, the preseason chatter is heating up, and overreactions are right on cue. We're about to watch our starters log less than 10 minutes a night, while everyone on the internet pretends to have discovered the future of the league. But who cares? That's the beauty of this time of year. It's chaotic, full of optimism, and anything feels possible. Circle the date, October 22nd. That's when the Celtics will officially get their season underway against the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, whether or not Joel Embiid suits up is anyone's guess. Early signs suggest he probably won't, especially given the Sixers' conservative approach with injuries lately. Paul George won't be ready either. So hey, maybe we kick off this campaign with a win and get the vibes rolling early. Wouldn't that be something? But let's dive into the good stuff. Some bold predictions have surfaced for the Celtics this season, and they're worth breaking down. These aren't just fan takes from Reddit or Twitter hot takes. These are stat-driven forecasts for what could be in store for Boston this year. The Celtics are entering the season with a mix of fresh faces, big absences, and a renewed focus on pushing the pace. So let's explore what that might look like on the court. First up, let's talk about Peyton Pritchard. The prediction here is that Pritchard is going to average over 5 assists per game. Honestly, this doesn't even feel bold. It feels inevitable. He finished last season just under 4 assists a night, and now, with more responsibility falling on his shoulders and the offense expected to speed up, 5 dimes a game seems like the floor. Pritchard's going to have the ball in his hands more than ever before. The Celtics need him to be a creator, not just a shooter or spark plug off the bench. And with the pace they're trying to play at, that means more possessions, more open shooters, and more opportunities to rack up assists. Don't be surprised if we see him pushing 6 or even 7 a night. Now, Jaylen Brown. Here's where things get real spicy. The take? Jaylen Brown finishes top 5 in the league in scoring. That's a huge leap, but let's not act like it's impossible. He put up over 26 points per game last season, even with Tatum sharing the floor. With Tatum expected to miss a significant portion of this season, Brown becomes option number 1 every single night. You take Tatum's usage off the floor, and someone has to fill that gap. Why not Jaylen? Think about the league's top scorers. Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis Antetokounmpo, maybe Jokic, maybe Anthony Edwards, but there's room at the top. Not everyone can average over 30. And Brown, with an even greater offensive load, could flirt with that number if things break right. Doesn't mean he'll be in the MVP conversation. Maybe not seriously, but if Boston finishes as a top 5 seed and Brown drops 28 or more per game, you're going to hear his name in the mix. Even if he's not in that final MVP race, he could easily wind up 5th or 6th in voting. Let's keep it rolling. Here's a curveball. The Celtics won't lead the league in three-pointers made or attempted. Last year, they were at the top of both categories, just under 18 threes made per game and over 48 attempted. That's a massive volume, but there's a belief that they're going to scale that back a bit. Is it because of how things collapsed in the playoffs? Maybe. Fans have been screaming all summer about Missoula's reliance on the 3-ball. The offense last year often felt one-dimensional. Live by the 3, die by the 3. Now, with new personnel and a more dynamic style of play in the works, perhaps the Celtics take a more balanced approach. They're still going to shoot a lot, don't get it twisted, but maybe not the most. Maybe they drop from 1st to 3rd or 4th in those categories. The pace will still be high, but the shot profile could shift, especially if they look to generate more paint touches or mid-range opportunities. And honestly, that might be for the better. Here's a hot take that might divide the fan base. Anthony Simons will be the 2nd leading scorer on the team. Bold? Absolutely, but not entirely far-fetched. Simons has averaged over 17 points per game in each of the last 4 seasons, and even topped 22 2 years ago. He's got the scoring chops. The question is how his game translates to this Celtic system and how many touches he gets with Brown leading the charge. Personally, I'm skeptical. I think it's more likely we see Simons, Pritchard, and Derek White all land somewhere in that 16 to 19 points per game range. They're going to spread the offense around a bit more. But if Simons really gets hot, especially if he's consistently getting starter-level minutes, then sure, he could be the second leading scorer. Still, my money's on Derek White. He's going to shoot a ton of threes, and he's already shown he can fill it up quickly. Simons has the skill, but let's see how he fits first. Speaking of White, this next prediction might be my favorite. Derek White finishes top 30 in both steals and blocks. Yes, a guard in the top 30 in blocks. And if you've watched White the past couple of seasons, you know that's not a pipe dream. He averaged just over 1 block per game and just under 1 steal last season. He was on the cusp of top 30 in both. With an even larger role this year, and the team focusing on chaos, pace, and defensive pressure, White has a real shot at pulling this off. The dude is already one of the best rim-protecting guards in the league. He has incredible timing, great instincts, and is always in the right spot. If Boston commits to that fast, aggressive defensive style, that's only going to help his numbers. Think full court pressure, jumping passing lanes, chasing transition blocks. White thrives in that kind of environment. If he stays healthy, he's making an all-defensive team, no question. Let's move into the front court. Nemi Keita is predicted to average 20 minutes a night. That's a big leap from the 14 minutes he played last year. But when you look at the Celtics' current big man rotation, it makes sense. Horford is a year older, Porzingis isn't available, and the front court depth is razor thin. Keita doesn't have much competition. Unless he gets into foul trouble or struggles to stay healthy, he's going to play. And not just garbage time, real, meaningful minutes. Now here's something that might be a little painful to accept. The Celtics are projected to finish in the bottom 10 in rebounding this year. And honestly, that tracks. You lose Al Horford's consistency, Porzingis' size, and most importantly, your best rebounder, Jason Tatum. That's a lot of boards walking out the door. You look around the current roster and ask yourself, who's going to crash the glass? Jaylen Brown? Maybe. Sam Hauser? Not exactly a rebounding machine. There's even been talk of starting Hauser at the 4 to stretch the floor. Fine, but who's he boxing out? Who's actually fighting for rebounds? This could be a real issue. The Celtics are going to need to rebound as a team because no single player is going to dominate the glass. They'll have to gang rebound, crash from the wings, and commit to it every night. But still, finishing in the bottom third of the league in rebounds seems like a real possibility. As for team performance, there's a prediction floating around that the Celtics will go on both a 5-game winning streak and a 5-game losing streak at different points in the season. And that feels about right. This team is going to be inconsistent. There's a lot of talent, but also a lot of question marks. New players, missing stars, shifting rotations. It's going to take time to gel. But once they find their rhythm, they have enough firepower to go on runs, especially in an Eastern Conference that's looking weaker than usual. And finally, perhaps the most optimistic take of all, Jason Tatum plays at least 1 game this season. A few weeks ago, that might have seemed like a long shot, but now, there's growing belief that he could return before the playoffs. Of course, he has to be 100% healthy, fully cleared, and without any risk of injury. The team won't rush him back. But if the Celtics are in the playoff picture by the time he's ready, don't be shocked if he suits up in the final weeks of the season. And that brings us to the overall outlook for the Celtics. Projected to finish with a 44-38 record, landing them the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. That's not a championship contender on paper, but it's a playoff team with enough talent to scare anyone in a 7-game series. The East isn't exactly stacked this year. After the top few squads, it's wide open. A team like Boston, even without Tatum for most of the regular season, can carve out space in that middle tier. Of course, this hinges on staying relatively healthy and getting real contributions from everyone, including the newcomers. One of the big questions that will define this team is, what are they actually getting from Anthony Simons? There's a lot of hype around him right now, especially with all the recent talk about his development on the defensive side of the ball. You keep hearing that he's ready to turn a corner, that he's in a better system, and that he's finally surrounded by players who know how to win. It all sounds great in theory, but it's also the kind of noise you hear every offseason. Let's be honest, Simons has never been known as a defender. He's had explosive scoring nights, sure. He's a legit offensive talent, but his impact on the other end has always been questionable. Now, can that change? Can a bad defender become at least a passable one? Of course. We've seen it happen before. Defense is as much about effort and system as it is about raw skill. And with guys like Derek White around to set the tone, maybe Simons can elevate his game. If the Celtics build a defensive identity and Simons buys in, he doesn't need to be elite, just not a liability. But here's the thing. If Portland, one of the best defensive teams post-All-Star break, was willing to move on from him, even as they emphasize defense, that says something. They had young guys step up like Donovan Clingan and Tamani Kamara. Sure, but they clearly didn't think Simons was irreplaceable. It's not about throwing shade. It's about understanding where he fits. He could thrive offensively in Boston, especially if he's the secondary option behind Brown. But defensively, the jury's still out, and no amount of preseason optimism changes that yet. Now, let's take a quick look around the league, because there's been some movement worth keeping an eye on. Jonathan Kuminga signed an extension with the Warriors, which raised eyebrows mostly because of Steve Kerr's comments. Kerr basically called him a beta in the most diplomatic way possible, saying that the team already has alphas in Steph, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green, so he's not worried about Kuminga disrupting the locker room. Wild thing to say out loud, honestly, especially when you remember Draymond literally punched a teammate in practice, and Jimmy's had locker room issues and multiple stops. But hey, apparently that's what alpha energy looks like. Over in Miami, the Heat are doing their usual confidence routine, claiming they're a championship team despite having a roster full of question marks. Tyler Herro's not ready to start the year. They've got Andrew Wiggins in constant trade rumors, and just signed Nikola Jovic to a $60 million deal. That's a big investment in a player who hasn't fully proven himself yet. Then there's KL, we're starting next to Bam Adebayo. Interesting, but unproven. Norman Powell's in the mix. Davion Mitchell's there, too. It's a strange group. Plenty of names, not a lot of clarity. They sound like the Celtics in terms of unpredictability, but without the ceiling. Right now, it's hard to see them as more than a mid-tier threat in the East. Philadelphia is another team in flux. Quentin Grimes didn't get extended and ended up signing his qualifying offer. That makes him a sneaky player to watch. He's now playing for his next contract, and with McCain out, the Sixers are going to need him to step up. If he performs well, he could become a trade piece by the deadline, or a young core piece moving forward. Either way, Philly's situation is unstable. With Embiid's health always a question, and their supporting cast still a work in progress, it's hard to project them with confidence. Out west, the Clippers announced that Bradley Beal will be starting. That caught some folks off guard. A lot of people assumed Beal would come off the bench and be a microwave scorer in a limited role, but apparently the Clippers are giving him a shot at meaningful minutes. Maybe they're trying to get ahead of the inevitable injuries, or maybe they still believe in his upside. Either way, it adds an interesting wrinkle to their already loaded backcourt. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. The NBA world is buzzing with whispers that could shake the league to its core. Sources close to the situation suggest that Jimmy Butler, the face of Miami's recent campaigns, is reportedly parting ways with the Heat. The reason? An unrelenting hunger for championships that he believes might finally find a home in Boston. Rumors indicate that Butler has agreed to a deal with the Celtics, a team steeped in championship history and currently on the hunt for a superstar capable of pushing them over the edge. Insiders describe Butler's departure from Miami as surprisingly amicable, though fueled by frustration. Despite leading the Heat to deep playoff runs, including a memorable finals appearance, it seems Butler feels the window for ultimate glory in Miami is closing. The Celtics, meanwhile, have long been rumored to covet an elite two-way wing, and Butler fits the bill perfectly. His competitive fire, leadership, and postseason experience could be exactly what Boston needs to complement their existing core and finally end their championship drought. Fans and analysts alike are speculating how this move would reshape the NBA landscape. Miami, always resilient, may look to pivot, but losing a player of Butler's caliber is undeniably seismic. Meanwhile, Celtics supporters are already imagining a lineup where Butler's intensity meshes with the likes of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, creating a trio capable of dominating both ends of the floor. Rumors suggest that Butler's decision wasn't just about money or market appeal, it was about legacy. The lure of bringing a championship back to Boston, a city that lives and breathes basketball, appears to have tipped the scales. While nothing is officially confirmed, the chatter in locker rooms, social media circles, and even among rival front offices points to a blockbuster shift that could define the next era of the league. If Butler indeed dons the green and white, the Celtics may finally have the missing piece they've been searching for. As the story unfolds, one thing is clear. Jimmy Butler is chasing rings, and Boston might just be the stage where his dreams finally come true. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.